Good morning, Iowa. For Scott Casper, I'm Nick Learhoff. St. Gregory's Talk Therapy discusses a topic that Iowans face every day, mental illness. Our program offers the expertise of doctors, therapists, and specialists who understand the challenges Iowans face every day. Join us from 4 to 5 a.m. and 10 to 11 a.m. Saturday mornings on Iowa's Hope 940 and online at talktherapytmhs.com. Join in for the conversation on this important life topic. As we like to say, Iowa, we're listening.
You bet we are. And from the Five Talents Financial Management Studios, it is Scott Casper. He's Nick Learhoff. Welcome to the show. St. Gregory's, our sponsor. We appreciate those folks and what they do for everybody that goes across the threshold of their facility. St. Gregory, they'll take care of you. This is the Mental Health Show. We talk about it. A wide variety of topics, each and every week, a different topic. This week, exercise therapy. Right now, perhaps more than ever before, it's important to exercise the mind, the body, and get this now, the soul. That's what I'm talking about. Spirituality is huge, but the soul, you got to nurture it. You got to feed it. And our guest today, you want to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. So Dr. Jacob Meyer from Iowa State University is Assistant Professor of Kinesiology and the Director of the Wellbeing and Exercise Laboratory. How are we doing this morning, Dr. Meyer?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Can we call you Dr. Jake?
Sure.
No, just kidding. Dr. Meyer, exercise therapy, and I'll say it, be the first one to say it on the show today, and that is COVID-19, the dreaded disease that's afflicting so many across the country. Most recently, the President of the United States and his wife were reported to have tested positive. Here's a guy that's on the go all the time. Okay, I mean, he gets 3-4 hours of sleep a night, but he's not anywhere near in peak physical condition. Does you know, in speaking of that particular disease and exercise help one stay healthier in its ability to combat things like COVID?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's the data are, as with everything with COVID, still getting figured out. But the little bit of information that is out there shows that people who are regular exercisers, different from people who are on the go all the time, but people who regularly exercise are less likely to develop significant associated with COVID and end up in the hospital because of it. So those people who already are exercising, it appears from not a ton of data, are less likely to end up hospitalized if they do get COVID, which I think is pretty interesting. The other thing is that there's what we know from exercise immunology in general. So that's looking at exercise and how it affects the immune system. Exercise is pretty effective at improving your natural defense against most pathogens that show up. But when you do develop an acute illness, it is important to change your exercise behavior. So the whole idea of quarantine and self-isolation, that's not the time to start an exercise program because it's not going to help you get better any quicker. But it might be helpful in advance to prevent that from happening in the first place.
Is that part of the argument as to why, athletics needs to happen on college campuses, high schools, et cetera, that, a healthy student athlete is much better than a student athlete that is waiting in the wings, as it were, to compete or to perform? Is that part of the argument?
I'll let the people who make those arguments do it. But I think there are clear benefits to being active and continuing to be active, and things that, policies that limit people's activity, particularly now, might be damaging in terms of the health of the population in lots of different ways. So I think we got to kind of balance a couple of factors.
I like a good balance. Dr. Jacob Meyer, our guest, Iowa State University Assistant Professor of Kinesiology and Director of Wellbeing and Exercise Laboratory. Director of Wellbeing, what does that mean?
So the laboratory is called the Wellbeing and Exercise Laboratory. So what we really look at is how exercise influences someone's well-being in all the different manifestations that well-being in that word really has.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at how exercise influences the brain and how it influences our cognitive functioning, but also how it's associated with mental health conditions. So how does exercise relate to the presence or severity of depressive symptoms? How does exercise maybe benefit people who are going through treatment for some psychological disorder? How do we see the relationship between sitting time and physical activity and mental health? So we sort of take well-being in a pretty broad sense, and really look at the ways that exercise and regular activity are associated with that.
Well, there's so much going on in today's world. I got to believe, and the numbers I've seen, Dr. Meyer, the numbers I've seen are astronomical when it comes to what we consider the norm or the baseline. Okay, so symptoms of depression, anxiety, chronic pain, all of these things, all these markers are up, up, up. How can exercise then affect those that are suffering from severe depression or acute anxiety or chronic pain?
So that you've just like gotten into my little world where I geek out, but I think it's fascinating because
he geeks out. Did you hear that?
No,
I love that.
I'm right there with him.
Okay.
I just haven't said anything yet.
All right, good.
Exercise is in this cool little spot where if people who have chronic pain conditions or chronic fatigue or depression or anxiety exercise, typically they feel better psychologically right after they exercise and while they're doing the exercise. And that effect can last for minutes, can last for hours, can maybe even last for up to a whole day after just one exercise session. And then if people continue to participate in exercise, that continued benefit that happens regularly ends up improving their sort of baseline or regular psychological state over time. And exercise training by itself can be as effective at treating clinical depression as antidepressants over a 12-week period. So it has this really powerful potential if people are able to continue doing it. One thing that is, makes it more difficult to prescribe exercise is that it's not just a pill you can take in the morning and that's the end of it. It doesn't just take 10 seconds. It takes a little bit longer than that. But the benefits far outweigh the risks that are associated with it because there aren't really any real risks to the general population. In specific circumstances, there can be risks associated with it with, chronic conditions. But in general, exercise is very safe and can really help to improve all the things that you mentioned: chronic pain, depression, anxiety, et cetera. And now, given the world in which we're currently living, as all of those things are unfortunately on the rise, now is a more important time than ever for us to think about how we can use exercise or even just regular physical activity in our daily lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Meyer, that's really, how we even came to meet. Part of St. Gregory's is that holistic approach. It's the health and wellness. It's exercise because, we understand what it can do for somebody who's struggling with anxiety, somebody who's struggling with depressions, body image issues, self-esteem issues. And so I was in a counselor's office, just kind of meeting with some folks, and there was a flyer in that therapy office of some of the research that Dr. Meyer was trying to do, and based off of what we do at St. Gregory's, it made a lot of sense for us to connect and talk a little bit, or just really learn. I wanted to learn what all Dr. Meyer was doing at that lab, and I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that at all, Dr. Meyer. We may get into that here after a bit, but when you look at drugs and alcohol and that instant gratification that needs to happen, that's a big part of what we talk about at St. Gregory's is, listen, exercise, yes, it's going to take more effort. It's going to take, it's not an instant fix, but the benefits are so dramatic into giving you that power to help manage the anxiety, help manage the depression in a holistic manner, in a self-driven, empowering manner. And, I always told folks that were coming through the program, listen, exercise is like a microcosm of the program. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, right? It's just like you can go into a gym and just look at an elliptical and you're not going to lose any weight. You're not going to get any stronger. Your respiratory system's not going to improve. I mean, as far as being able to really gain the benefits of the exercise, just
Right.
like you can go into a group and you can sit there and think about all the other things you want to be doing, and so, it's really about, getting active and really moving forward in a much more positive direction.
Well, that's the show. It was that good. His description and would you agree with most of what he said or all of it?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of really good points there, and I think one of them that is particularly relevant for lots of people is that the power of being able to fix this is in your hands. There's an empowerment piece to it where it's like, okay, I can rely on this external thing, this medication that I've been prescribed, or going to therapy and working with a therapist. But a lot of the benefits of those things seem to come from somebody else or somewhere else, whereas exercise is one of those things where it's like you're the one who's doing it, and that gives you the ability to sort of make those choices and changes, and then you can see those results or the benefits of it on your own without having to necessarily interact with a different healthcare system. And for a lot of people, that is really important because they feel like they don't have the choices or the ability to deal with what's going on their own. And this is one way that people can do a little bit of behavior change that might be able to help them feel like they've got the power to tackle what's going on. I think that's an
huge.
important piece.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about empowering yourself. We're going to talk about ways to reduce anxiety, depression, negative moods, improving self-esteem, improving cognitive function, all that and more on this episode where we're talking about exercise therapy, mind, body, and soul with our guest, Dr. Jacob Meyer from Iowa State University. He's the director of the Wellbeing and Exercise Laboratory there in Ames, Iowa. And we hope you stick around. From the Five Talents Financial Management Studios, I'm Scott Casper. He's Nick Learhoff. Stay tuned. There's more St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show, after this short timeout.
Stay tuned. There's more with Nick Learhoff and Scott Casper right here on Iowa's 940 for St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Iowa, we're listening.
I came to St. Gregory very reluctantly at my all-time worst, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But I gave my best effort to these new things in my life as I saw hope in this complete approach. I'm at the point now that I feel my strongest and best ever, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I felt quite certain God was orchestrating everything.
St. Gregory Recovery Center. Recovery starts here. RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory.
Welcome back. This is Nick Learhoff. I'm with Scott Casper on
Good morning,
940
Nick.
Hope.
Yeah.
And we are talking today with Dr. Meyer from the Iowa State's Exercise and Wellbeing Lab. And we want to just kind of talk a little bit about empowerment and utilizing exercise in order to really move somebody into a much more positive frame of mind, positive execution of being active and taking the life by the horns, if you will.
Well, and that's it. Dr. Meyer, welcome back. Anxiety is huge because right now people are fearful they're going to get sick, right? That they're going to contract COVID or in this part of the year, the flu, traditional flu. But how can exercise reduce anxiety? How can exercise in and of itself affect a depressed mood or a negative mood?
Yeah, exercise can do a whole lot in each of those areas. There's consistent research that shows that people who exercise more regularly are less likely to develop significant symptoms of anxiety or significant symptoms of depression. There's also randomized controlled trial evidence that shows if people start an exercise training program, they already have significant anxiety or depressive symptoms, the anxiety and depressive symptoms will go down across that treatment program, meaning that the exercise by itself, with whatever people are doing associated with an exercise, will end up helping to treat anxiety and depressive symptoms. And as we see anxiety and depressive symptoms on the rise these days, exercise can be a really important part of the way that people sort of self-manage or think about dealing with those concerns that are just kind of coming at us from every direction. And I think the ability for people to make some changes to their own behavior, so maybe deciding that they're going to, walk to the store instead of drive, if that's possible, or, be more active in and around outside of their work schedules rather than, just consuming maybe media or something. Those choices can have really important effects on people's general psychological health, and the changes themselves might not need to be huge to help to improve the way that people are feeling. And I think that's really helpful for people to realize that you don't necessarily have to go out and start training for an Ironman. But even a little small change in your choices about the way that you do something in an active manner or in a passive manner can have a really important impact on the way that people are feeling.
All right. So in prepping for the show, some of the information we accumulate and put into our script, and the script, we always refer to the script, by the way, as if this entire show is scripted out word by word. No, it's merely an idea, right? It's an idea in transition. There are 5 mental health benefits of exercise. Okay. And Dr. Meyer, I'm going to describe these, and you feel to jump in and jump off at any time because we have follow-up questions. But other mental and emotional benefits of exercise include sharper memory and thinking, which my father at 88 years old, we were talking about this off air, he gets a huge bump out of his 2 exercise classes a day at 88 years old, whether they're chair or standing, any kind of movement as opposed to sitting in a chair and reading. Reading, give credit where credit's due, helps sharpen the mind for sure. But when you're moving, along with those that you live with, I think is a tremendous endorsement of a positive outlook on life. Sharper memory and thinking. The same endorphins that make you feel better also help you concentrate and feel mentally sharp for tasks at hand. As soon as he's done with exercise class, he's on the phone with me, saying, "Hey, I got to get my driver's license renewed." But he doesn't do any further research that you got to make an appointment to get your driver's license renewed. And they're making appointments all the way to the end of November now. And so, I mean,
Crazy.
So yeah, right. But it's interesting that he's on top of this like a dog with a bone, right? He wants to get after these projects and get them done. I love that. And that's the side benefit. I didn't see this type of focus on jobs or tasks at hand, things that he needed to get done. I didn't see that prior to his beginning to participate with these exercise classes. So kudos.
I think exercise can do a lot of important things, and you also have to think about what happens when, in this case, your father goes and participates in the exercise program that's available at the place that he's living. There's, so he has to plan to go exercise, get into the right, clothes for the exercise. He has to go out of his room to the place where the exercise happens. He has to interact with other people, likely, who are part of the program. And all of those things, the planning, the engaging with other people, the sort of performing a group activity, which includes coordination with other people, all of those other pieces are also really important for sort of maintaining and improving cognitive function, even before we even get to the actual act of moving his body, And so I think that if we sort of can think about everything that goes into exercise, while the exercise itself is obviously important and helpful, all those other pieces can be big differences in someone's life that they might not otherwise be doing very often, and can help to get those people to realize, like, oh yeah, I could maybe go down to the DMV and, renew my license if I can get out and do this exercise class, which is maybe sort of a big task. But if I can do that, I can do other things. It might just be sort of like the first step in a pathway that helps lead people to different types of plans for the day or the week.
Yeah, and I think if you look at, too, of somebody who already is struggling, I'm not saying your father, but like a general person who's struggling with anxiety, as you're exercising and, part of that anxiety is being scatterbrained or like, kind of thing, you have just racing thoughts and things, as you exercise and you get those endorphins flowing and it helps kind of reduce some of that. I think there's some of that cloud or some of those racing thoughts would subside or get reduced through exercise, which would also help to clear the path for more clearer thinking.
I think that's outstanding. So
can I jump in on the endorphin idea?
Go ahead.
So the endorphin hypothesis for why people feel better after exercise actually doesn't have useful or strong scientific support. So we all sort of have heard that like endorphins are why you feel better after exercise. It's kind of this general, generic, sort of known, in quotes, idea, but the science doesn't really back it up. Endorphins are the body's own chemicals that are produced to help to dampen pain sensitivity. And while endorphins might be involved in the way that people feel less pain after exercise, this is a known phenomenon that occurs. The results about the way that people feel from a psychological perspective after exercise don't really seem to line up with the way that endorphins change after exercise. And so the idea that people's endorphin release with exercise is what's causing them to feel better doesn't really play out in the scientific literature. There's a little bit of recent stuff and some work that I've done that looks at the endocannabinoid system. So that's the body's own system that interacts with cannabis. So where some of the chemicals that are in cannabis interface with the brain, they do it through the receptors that are part of the endocannabinoid system. And the amount of endocannabinoids that are released in the bloodstream during exercise appear to be associated with the amount of change in depressed mood that happens across that exercise session in women who are depressed, with the idea or sort of the corollary or outcome being that how much exercise is influencing your endocannabinoid system might be really the mechanism through which exercise is changing the way that people feel rather than the endorphin system. I know it's like these are two systems that we probably will never speak of again, but I just wanted to at least where the current state of science is on those topics.
It's something that I've just noticed recently, how much we never heard it before, and now we're hearing it almost every day, if not many times a day. Trust the science. Trust the science. Well, here's my argument against always trusting the science. You put 20 scientists in a room with one problem, you're going to come up with 20 different answers, sometimes supportive of each other, but generally speaking, everybody, extrapolates what they want out of a question and further an answer. So I think there's a lot of different ways to approach. That's one of the reasons why you see a multitude of different machines in a gym, or different types of exercise, different types of movement. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about what type of exercise is good for the mind, what type of exercise is good for the body, the basic principles of therapeutic exercise. We're going to talk with Dr. Jacob Meyer from Iowa State about those and other ideas about therapeutic types of exercise. We're also going to give you some resources, okay? And by the way, anytime we have a guest on this show, relevant to that guest, you will find a resource tab on our website that'll help you stay in touch with the topics that we discuss. That's by design. We try to always advance our curriculum, if as it were, in order to help you stay in touch with the science or the idea and the conversation. We'll continue the conversation on the other side of the break. Nick Learhoff is in studio today. Next week he'll have next week off. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Brittany Blong will be back in next week, and we'll be doing a kind of a alumni to alumni special from a standpoint of
From St. Gregory.
From St. Gregory's. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. And I think it's pretty cool that you have alumni, and I see it all the time. Alumni that are willing to talk about their experience, where they're at in life. It's an endorsement of the progress they're making on their road to recovery, and it's a long road. It's a lifetime of work that needs to be put back in. You can tear it down in minutes.
Oh man, yeah, but it's the process of building it back up. And if you look at just being able to have them back in and to be able to talk about maybe what worked for them, and maybe there's somebody out there listening that, whether it's a St. Gregory's thing or not, they can take from it
Right.
and learn from it and use it to be that thing that helps them find recovery. So
Our producer, Danny Bishop, you're listening to Talk Therapy, the mental health show. On this particular day, it's episode 8 as we make our way through 52. Hope 940 KPSZ is our home. We trust you'll stick around. More St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show, on the other side of this timeout.
Talk Therapy, the mental health show, is brought to you by St. Gregory's Recovery Center. St. Gregory's features individualized drug treatment programs with a personal and holistic approach. Enjoy private counseling in small groups attended by caring staff in beautiful and serene locales. St. Gregory's is evidence-based rehabilitation. Most insurance is accepted. Don't go it alone. Enjoy a high success rate with St. Gregory's Recovery Centers. St. Greg's, it's where science meets recovery. stgregory.com.
I can't say enough about the staff at St. Gregory's, who seem especially gifted to work in this field. They were so helpful and encouraging and will always have my gratitude. I made some very good new friends, a couple of whom I probably would not have made it through those beginning days without. Everyone and the programs at St. Gregory's seemed designed and placed in my life by God's perfect plan.
relevantradio.com/St. Gregory. relevantradio.com/St. Gregory.
welcome back. This is Nick and Scott with St. Gregory Talk Therapy. We have a guest here, Dr. Meyer from the Iowa State's Wellbeing and Exercise Lab.
Yeah.
And we are talking a little bit about exercise and the role it plays with mental health, anxiety, depression, all those things that, 40 million Americans deal with some sort of anxiety disorder. So we thought it would be good to kind of get some.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Welcome back, Dr. Meyer. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate that. Higher self-esteem, better sleep, more energy, stronger resilience, all side benefits to any type of physical endeavor. Is that true?
Yeah, actually, with each of those things and our side benefits, you might not even realize. The sleep one in particular, people don't necessarily realize how good or bad their sleep is at any point in time. But exercise can help to regulate some of your sleep rhythms, which can be really helpful in the short and in the long term.
All right, so exercise, training exercise. What's the role of the training exercise?
Well, so exercise, we can think about one time that someone goes and exercises. Maybe they go for a long walk or they go for a jog, and that can help the way that person is feeling and functioning that day, maybe the next day. But if people do exercise training, that means they're really continuously exercising. So they're exercising maybe 3 times a week or 5 times a week. And that consistency with doing the behavior and continuing to do that over weeks is really key to realizing many of the benefits that are associated with exercise and continuing to see and to feel those benefits. And that exercise that people are doing can be, going for a walk or going for a jog or going for a run, or it can be lifting weights or doing high-intensity interval training, or really any of the myriad ways that exercise happens is associated with each of these positive benefits.
And by the way, you can get in a rut, okay? while working out. You can get in a rut. You talk about interval training, and there's a wide variety of types of ways to work out. But I'm going to challenge you to do this. Don't get in a rut. Always mix it up. Plan out your workouts. Don't just show up at the gym and allow it to happen. Sometimes that's fun, but in order to be truly beneficial, and I've been working out my entire life, and I know it shows. Shut up, Nick. But I have been, and I enjoy the process. I truly do. But I always have an idea what I'm going to do when I get there, and therein lies the benefit, I think. Dr. Meyer, why is working out good for mental health?
Oh, that's a great question. If we had a clear answer for that, I think the clinical usefulness of exercise would be much higher, because people would see it as a valuable treatment, just like using antidepressant or anxiolytic medications. There's a bunch of theories as to why exercise helps people feel better, and with varying levels of support. And a couple of the prominent ones are changes in the availability or amount of neurotransmitters that are around in particular systems: dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. There's the idea that it doesn't necessarily work off of any particular neurotransmitter system, but just helps the way that people perceive themselves. Self-perceptions and self-confidence ends up changing over time. You even said, hey, and it shows. And whether or not that Nick's giggle meant that maybe it doesn't show or maybe it does, doesn't really matter, because you believe that this is something that's been important for you. And sometimes that belief in the way that you think about the exercise and what it does might be the important critical piece in the way that changes people's psychological health after they exercise. So there's lots of ideas about why it happens and how it happens. But in some ways, how it happens or why it happens doesn't matter, because it consistently happens. So, whatever the sneaky little biological system is that's involved or responsible for it, or the set of systems that are all contributing to it, doesn't matter as much as the fact that it's a consistent effect that we see. And so if people do start exercising or, increase their activity a little bit, they're going to see the benefits regardless of how or why that's happening.
Well, I think we, to kind of jump in here, I think we see a little bit of that with our clients at St. Gregory's, from the standpoint of, like, a lot of times people come in and their self-esteem is very, very low, just
Right.
due to the use and maybe any of the behaviors that were associated with the use. And so what it can do for that person's self-efficacy and the idea or a belief of being able to accomplish a task. We've had people come in and we say, okay, we're going to do some of our initial testing. We're going to get on the treadmill and have you walk a mile. And people look at us like, are you
can't
serious?
do that.
Like, I've never gotten on one of these. I don't want to be on one of these. Like, this makes me uncomfortable.
It's scary.
And it's scary. It's something new. It's new behaviors, new habits that we're trying to form, and so let me help you. Just put your hands on the rails. Let's just start slow. I'm just going to press the up button until you feel like you're actually in a decent pace or have the decent, stride. And so they get through it. Wow, that wasn't so bad.
No.
And then they add something else. Then we add something else. And then by, week 4, they're doing all these different things that they had no idea that they could do. They didn't have the confidence to do it. They didn't believe that they could do it. And so, they start doing all these different things. And then that also can transfer over into some of the cognitive behavioral stuff that we do where, hey, listen, you can check those emotions. You can help regulate those emotions. You can have impulse control. We just have to do different things to get different results. We can't just do the same thing over and over and expect, change things to change. So, the skills and things that people learn, that they grow through health and wellness is transferable to a lot of different areas in life.
Dr. Jacob Meyer, our guest. And Doctor, you were connected with a software company that is used in a lot of different substance and alcohol disorder treatment facilities. What can you tell us about that?
So the software company that I got connected with has a program that people who are engaged in different treatment facilities for alcohol use or for substance use or for whatever the reason is that they're in there, they help to provide information on how the progress of treatment is going. So, are the cravings going down? Are people's mental states improving? How are things going sort of treatment-wise to figure out like how people are doing and maybe how long they need to be in there before they transition to the next phase, kind of giving some sort of participant trajectory information. And one of the things that I was particularly interested in was, well, a lot of programs, such as St. Gregory's, have some type of relationship with exercise or this holistic thinking that St. Gregory's does, which gets people to maybe exercise more, or maybe they've got an exercise program as part of the clinic. And my personal interest was, how does whether or not people are engaging with exercise during their time with the clinic, how does that amount of exercise or change in exercise behavior relate to how people are doing in terms of their own personal recovery process? And so I had to include some questions about physical activity and exercise so that we could start to evaluate that and get to sort of a better understanding of really how important is the role of exercise in recovery from some of these things, because right now the information doesn't really exist as to whether or not exercise is a valuable piece of that program. We all have good ideas that it could be really helpful, and from a lot of different perspectives, what we know what it does for exercise, for depression or for anxiety, we know exercise could be helpful, but really how powerful it could be within the context of disorder, of substance use disorder treatment isn't really known. So this is kind of an exciting new area for us to investigate.
Yeah, so the software you guys are talking about is Track 9, and that's one of the things that we use at St. Gregory's to help track
I've worked with that.
Client progress. So basically, it tracks a couple different factors, basically resiliency factors, quality of life, optimism, spirituality, as well as pathology factors, which are more of the anxiety, depression, stress, those things. So as resiliency factors go up, pathology factors go down. Or so as somebody has higher optimism, quality of life, spirituality, typically their stress, anxiety, those types of the pathology factors go down. And so we use this for predictive analytics as far as the clients take that assessment, or they kind of do like a computer-based assessment and every week. And then that helps kind of coordinate with our counselors and our therapists to say, okay, this person's numbers, their pathology factors are going up, their stress, anxiety. So what's causing that? So that way we can reach out. And so as we, Dr. Meyer and I in St. Gregory started working together, we started talking about, okay, maybe that's a great avenue to start adding exercise into those factors, so that way we can see how that plays into those pathology and resiliency factors.
All right, we're going to talk about that and more. Danny, how much time left in the show? I guess that's my question. How much? Go ahead.
12 and a half minutes.
12 and a half minutes? Okay, so we're going to take one more time out. That's it. We'll take a quick time out and more. I want to discuss Dr. Meyer's current connection with St. Gregory's and what the future looks like, because so many different projects are on the board, and it takes everybody to buy in, develop a curriculum to take maximum or make a maximum impact on those that are participating. And having been a product being a product of that Track 9 and St. Gregory's, I will tell you this, that it doesn't happen by accident, and that's the point I want to get across. Planning is huge, and then execution equally as important. We'll talk more with Dr. Jacob Meyer on the other side of the break as we come to you live from the 5 Talents Wealth Management Studios. There is something you need to plan for long and in the future. Make sure you plan today to benefit your future, and I'm talking about good financial health. Okay, are you ready for the future? Have you saved enough? Are you planning for a good positive retirement? Well, the good friends of Five Talents Wealth Management Studios can help you, and I'm talking about Don Boyd and his talented team at Five Talents Wealth Management Studios. My family uses the services and trust Don Boyd, and I know you will too. Five Talents Wealth Management. More after this. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. There's more with Nick Learhoff and Scott Casper right here on Iowa's 940 for St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Iowa, we're listening.
The folks at St. Gregory were vital in helping me to get my brother into rehab. They were not only supportive of him, but of our whole family. They truly saved all of our lives with their love and kindness. Because of the hard work they helped my brother do, we regained a valued, healthy, and incredible part of our family. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory, setting the new standard for recovery.
All right, welcome back to the show. It is St. Gregory's Talk Therapy from the Five Talents Wealth Management Studios. Casper and Learhoff on this particular day, and this fall day. And I tell you what, favorite season, lots of change going on. One of those changes we hope you're experiencing, and if you're not, we're inviting you to take part in something we call life, okay? Sitting in a chair, reading a book is great. But let's get up. Let's start moving. Let's be positive. One of the processes that I go through every day is to stay as busy as I physically as much as I can possibly be busy. That's me. I want to nail it, okay? I get so much accomplished, and part of that is the physical movement of whether I'm taking care of my yard or my home. The things that I like to do are, I think, part and parcel to being healthier. I really do. But it also makes it much easier for me to make that decision to take a 1 mile walk with or without my dogs. It doesn't have to be, it can be just for me. Okay. And that's part of it. And if you're selfish in that regard, I'm going to give you that permission slip you need or you don't need. I think you don't need it, but I'm going to give you that permission. Okay. To get up and do something for yourself. Nick, we talk about that positive movement and whether it's positive movement physically or mentally or emotionally, any positive movement's good, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and even you think of the kind of the craze or what you see now with all the group fitness classes.
Yeah.
And that's part of what we talk about at St. Gregory's too, is like being social, having sober social friends.
That's huge.
And just being active with others. We are all creatures of that strive for social interaction, that need to be around others. And so being able to be active, be social, have fun, laugh with it, is just so important for, I mean, obviously the physiological effects of exercise and as far as mental health and all that stuff, but just overall happiness and quality of life.
All right. So about 9 minutes remain in the program. Dr. Jacob Meyer, our guest from Iowa State University, director of the wellness lab up there. And I think, you know what, the universities, when they first started coming up with these ideas, I'm thinking, God, yes. Why not? Why can't we have a psychologist available to the wrestling team, for example? I think, the advances in athletics at the university level are far and away exceeding my wildest dreams. It's one thing to be able to feed an athlete something to nourish the body, but to nourish the brain, to nourish the spirit, you're not going to win in everything you do. Okay, you got to be prepared for losing too, right? Dr. Jacob Meyer, welcome back. Talk to us about what you're actively involved in terms of well-being and exercise. What areas of research are you actively involved in?
Sure. One of the primary things that my lab and group are trying to investigate is how exercise can be used in the treatment of depression, and specifically, how can we think about what we know about how exercise can improve the brain, improve the way that people are feeling in the short term, and see how that influences mental health treatment. And so the current project that we have going on that we've just started recruiting for is a project that's designed to look at what happens right before someone has a cognitive behavior therapy therapy session. And we're looking at if people take sort of a timeout of their daily stressors and, rest calmly and quietly, does that then bleed over into the therapy session in such a way that that person is more engaged? They've kind of thought through a few of the things that they knew that they were going to have to talk about, that they can kind of get into that session more effectively. Or what if we have people exercise right before their therapy session? And so people come in and they exercise with us for 30 minutes. And then when they're done with that 30-minute session of exercise, then they walk into the therapy room, and then will those short-term benefits of exercise that we know exist, improvements in mood, reductions in anxiety and stress, do those then sort of bleed over into the therapy session such that that session then is more productive because that person's more engaged, more able to encounter whatever it is that they have to go through during that therapy session. And then the therapy sessions end up being more generally effective or more effective quicker than in other non-sort of pre-treated conditions. And so we're really interested and excited about trying to figure out how exercise might be useful as sort of a priming agent for the way that therapy goes. And this is a project that we're doing with people who have depression actively in my lab right now. So if that's interesting to some listeners, please give us a call because we'd love to talk to you about it. But if another part of this is we're also working with the folks at St. Gregory's to look at when their exercise sessions happen across the day in conjunction with when the individuals who are part of that program have their own individual counseling sessions. Because what we're looking at is how long since the last exercise session happened, how long has passed since the last exercise session happened when people enter therapy, and does that length of time matter? If people are going sort of back to back, is that better than if people are going, with a 4-hour or 2-hour break, or people haven't exercised since the day before? And so that's helping us to sort of like figure out this whole area of how exercise might be able to be integrated into a multidimensional treatment program.
I found that so beneficial, my personal experience, and those, that I'm still in touch with, those folks that, I spent time with at St. Gregory. I will tell you this, that, it affected them, and it's long-term. The discussion of being around people who are actively using or drinking or, using substances of any kind, that really plays, there's no consequence. In other words, it's not part of our daily conversation. There's many other things to fill that time, and it's because we've been given a positive platform with which to work from, and I think that's huge. And I think one of the reasons why, when you first proposed this topic, Nick, then it all kind of started to click, and it makes sense. So the scientific approach actually works. In this case, Dr. Meyer, who's had a tremendous impact on what is happening with St. Gregory, and if you want to experience something in a positive sense in regard to recovery, substance abuse, it doesn't matter what the substance is. I'm going to tell you that St. Gregory is on the cutting edge of what the future of treatment looks like. And I hesitate to use the word treatment because really what it is, it's a timeout. You're checking yourself and you're leaving everything else behind, and you're just focusing on you in that moment and that time. And then, maybe the week after, you're going to look at the future and how does that look to you? We're going to help you plan for that future, for positivity. And one of the ways to do that is through positive exercise and exercise science. Dr. Jacob Meyer has been our guest. And you can find out more online, too. And we'll provide you a tab under our resources drop down on our website. It's talktherapytmhs.com. Dr. Myers, are there other ways that folks can be in touch with you and follow you on social media or just online? If, for example, I Googled you.
Yeah, you're always welcome to Google me. The Google knows. But we have a Twitter account, Facebook account, Instagram account for my lab. The Wellbeing Exercise Lab, you can search for that, or WellX Lab at ISU, depending on the platform. They have slightly different tags, but they're pretty much all the same. And pay attention to us there, or go to our website on the Iowa State site, which we can facilitate a link for people to look at.
Send that to me if you would, please, and I'll make sure that gets on our website, okay?
Will do.
I know we're only scratching the surface here, Dr. Meyer, but I hope you take the opportunity to join us again in the future, because I think this is too broad a topic to just spend 1 hour on. I think we need to spend a lot of different hours and hopefully entice one person to a new and different way of looking at their lives through exercise. Thank you, Dr. Meyer.
Thanks for having me.
Go Cyclones?
Yep, go Cyclones.
All right, thank you very much. All right, NAMI was, if you recall, Peggy was our very first guest. Well, Peggy has her communications officer now texting me, tweeting, Facebooking, sending me Gmail mail. And one of the things I got recently is NAMI Walks Iowa switching to a virtual event. So every year, the Iowa chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, brings together people across the state to raise mental health awareness and funds through NAMI Walks Iowa. Well, you can be involved with NAMI Walks Iowa. It's a virtual event. It's called NAMI Walks Your Way, Saturday, October 10th. The day benefits the organization's mission for recovery-focused support, education, and advocacy for individuals and families affected by mental illness. We're going to invite you to be involved. Look for more information online, and you can do so and be involved in a positive way. NAMIWalks.org, NAMI, N-A-M-I, walks.org/Iowa, I-O-W-A. No registration fee, but fundraising is encouraged, and we fully support the efforts of everybody at NAMI, and the benefits are obvious. Nick, thank you so much. Great show.
Great show. No, Dr. Meyer was fantastic. I think, he kind of hit the nail on the head. Is everybody kind of has this thing that they see where it's all or nothing. I have to either start a whole new regimen and do this thing perfectly, or I might as well not exercise at all, which isn't true. We just need to get out there and start moving.
You've been listening to St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the Mental Health Show from the 5 Talents Wealth Management Studios here on Hope 940.